All right, welcome to the Stampscapes lab. We have another test video here using the marble paper. It's a really cheap, very thin, disposable placemat paper. Okay, so you eat off it and toss it out. So decorative with this kind of marble pattern on here. I thought that one of the applications could be for kind of snowy types of scenarios. Where you have this in the water, it's not going to be something where you have something like ice going back in perspective, but it's a pattern that's, I don't know, I guess close enough to where it can represent something like that in certain areas of the paper. So I thought I'd give it a try here. All right, so we're using just a black ink here. You can use whatever type of ink you want. I would recommend probably something more along the lines of like a VersaFine Clair. I'm using a hybrid black ink, which is a combination of dye-based ink and an oil-based pigment ink, okay? And we're printing over printer inks on here, even though it looks fairly white. It's going to be some sort of ink that is sealing off some of the paper a little bit. You can see right here, I stamped it out in black, but even those black areas in there could use a little bit more tone, preferably, but you know, this paper does resist our ink just a touch. Let me see if I can go again and get a little bit of a better print here. Sometimes you just kind of press and hold a little bit longer. So we'll see what it looks like on this one. This is, of course, you know, anytime you get new types of papers, you should test out your different types of inks on it to see which one results in the best results here. Okay, so let me see if I can stamp and hold this one for a little bit longer here. And let's see if we can get a better, darker impression. You don't necessarily need to press harder, but just kind of allow the ink to transfer a little bit more, and or for the ink to penetrate the surface and some of the pores of the paper. A little bit darker, okay? All right, so when I'm stamping this onto the paper here, what I want is to achieve the darkest impression, but where it doesn't give me the darkest impression, we can always fill that in. But I'm also kind of looking on areas of the paper where there's a lot of contrast. Now this is probably about I don't know, a 20% gray, 25% gray maybe. So areas where that pattern runs through here, that's going to be within the open areas of an open image. If we're just stamping all silhouette types of images on here, we don't need to worry about like, you know, these patterns in here with like the solid trees or something of that sort. But anytime you have open areas like these areas in the windows here or on the roof right there, that pattern is going to show right through it. But we have some different things that we can use in there to reestablish kind of a lighter area within the design should we need it, okay? All right, so right here you can see, you know, this has this deep pattern and it's going right into some of these windows. So I might reveal some of those windows again with some white ink right here. The pastel white, I didn't really try that out yesterday in my first experiments with that, but that can probably be used on here too because this paper is fairly porous. All right, you can't really build up too much on here. It's not like a fine paper with a lot of tooth, you know, grain to it, but you can do a certain degree of soft media applications, i.e. pastel pencil and colored pencils, okay? All right, let's get some other imagery in the foreground. Sometimes when you add foreground imagery into a scenario like this, where those images didn't stamp out really dark, you know, you can, if you stamp out your foreground imagery in a darker tone, it can look pretty good against lighter toned imagery in the background. Let's see how we do here. So things that are closer to us usually are darker than things farther in the background because, you know, light, that's just the way light works. It bounces off objects and, you know, goes back to our eye. As they say in photography, we're really seeing light. So if this location here, or if it's foggy or anything like that, it's that light is breaking up in the, you know, in the air. I forget what it's called. Refraction? Is that it? Or anyways, you can see right there, got a pretty good dark impression of that. So just kind of press and hold for a little bit, probably longer than what you would typically do on, you know, something like a piece of matte, you know, or semi-gloss or glossy white cardstock. All right, let's see here. So this right here, I kind of added that tree down here. I'm going to probably move this one a little bit farther out, just so it doesn't look so repetitive in terms of a, I don't know, kind of a foreground foreground line of trees. We'll go 3 over here and 2 over there, just so it's not so symmetrical. All right, I think this would be kind of interesting here. We talked about this, or some people made comments that on this type of marbled paper, you know, we're talking about like little ice skaters or something like that in this area. But let's put a row of trees in the background so it'll look, you know, so we'll close this off a little bit more and make it look like a frozen lake. Let's see here. Let me find my trees that go on this set. Sometimes I don't put things back after I use it, just because I plan on using it again, but let me find that. All right, let's get this row of trees in the back. And while getting these trees, we have some ice skating figures here, and I'll utilize those within the scene as well. Okay, these trees are going to go right in here, so we need to mask off these open trees. They're not solid, whatever, conifers, but they're more of the larch style of trees, so you can color them, you know, any type of color you want if it's within a certain season that you want to depict. So you can do fall colors in these lighter trees, or you can just have it represent some snow on these trees, like in these open areas like that. So in other words, they're not just like a solid tree, like something like this. Okay. All right, let's see here. So it looks okay. This vein right here in the marble does get pretty solid, but let's see what we have here. position our little skaters like this. I usually haven't done all the skaters, or a bunch of them in one scene before, but I think that would be pretty cool here. Let's see. I was trying to think of where I want these in relation to each other in terms of perspective, but if I snap them a little bit lower, that doesn't seem too kind of out of place. I don't know, these two people are a little bit smaller than this guy, so I'll put them a little bit higher up. A bit like that. Yeah, it looks pretty good. And let's see, this person right here, I'll put them, that person's about the same as those, so I don't know. I mean, you can put them, in various areas. You don't have to abide by scale so much, I don't know if I'd put them, 7 inches apart, but you can play around with them quite a bit. All right, this person here, they have a solid head, and this area right back there is fairly light, so I put them up in that with that in the background. And it's not too bad. Okay, so that is the stamping portion of this video. Now let's just kind of flesh it out a little bit more. I think it looks pretty decent. This area in here needs to be kind of tweaked a little bit with some lightness back into these patterned veins within the marble, but it's not too bad. So on something like this, I mean, it's supposed to be kind of ice. I don't want to do too much, so I'm just kind of adding a little bit of shade down here. There's just less contrast in snowy, icy types of scenarios. But, for the purpose of a scene where, a little bit more contrast kind of anchors things down a little bit more, you have to kind of just take your, I don't know, whatever, take artistic license. I'm kind of adding a little bit of shadow for these figures right here. And that little shadow just kind of anchors the figures into the scene a little bit more. All right, let's see. Let's add a little bit more contrast where our impressions didn't stamp out, or stamped out a little bit lighter than what I want. So I just put a little bit of shadow underneath that roof right there. And see this rooftop right here, or the porch. That's a little bit light in there. So you don't need to tone in the whole thing, but if you can just kind of hit some of those shadow areas a little bit more to establish a little bit more contrast, that's usually enough. Like that, and that kind of brings that out a little bit more. Okay, now let's go into this area, and we're going to put some light back into those windows right there to give it a little bit more contrast, I guess. Just where those windows did fill up with tone, because we stamped it over those darker patterns in the background. So in the windows there, I just put a little bit more light into it. Now this rooftop here, I liked my rooftops to be fairly light, so some of that patterning got in right there. Let me test something out. Let me see this pastel pencil. The pastel pencil works a little bit. It's somewhat see-through, so let's go with the paint pen instead. Might not, if I can. It's kind of hard to apply this over dry pastel, but sometimes a pastel will go up in the tip, or any type of dry medium, so just kind of watch out for that. So I added that back in that rooftop, and now I don't have that patterning within that rooftop right there. And right in here, see this patterning goes up into these rocks right here. So I don't want these objects to look like they're see-through, so what you do is you break up that pattern or that shading, and now see I have this lighting on top of the rock right here. And now it doesn't look like this right here. It's just going straight through this whole area right here. See these trees up right there? I'll just kind of establish some of the lighter trees so that the tree, again, it's an opaque tree. It's not just something that's completely see-through and subject to the existing tones of in this case, the background paper, the marble paper, like that. So see, I'm kind of bringing out this tree a little bit. All right, so a little bit more dimensional against that background right here. You can make this rooftop stand out a little bit more. It's kind of like a little exercise in it's, you can shade on here, but you can also illuminate light certain objects, which is really fun. Okay, let's see. Let's add some of this lighting back in here on some of these trees. Let's see if we can make it go a little bit faster with a larger pen. Okay, so I'll hit these trees in here that are lighter, and I'll try to give them a little bit of light. I'm going to have it where lighting is coming from over here, so I'll illuminate the trees to the right of it. I'll illuminate the left side from it for the most part. I'll put a little bit, just to balance it off so it's not just so dominantly illuminated on the left side. And we'll do the opposite on this one. I'll right side illuminate some of these, okay? I don't have these trees aren't as light over here as this stamp design, but we can, we can hit up some of it. Always just kind of rotate your paper around at an angle that's the most conducive for whatever mark you're laying down here, so I can get it these a little bit easier and I can see it. What I'm illuminating when I just flip this upside down like this a little bit better. So I can see what I'm doing there. If I go like this, I'm kind of covering up, some areas. I don't know, I guess you can do it like that, but I can't see it as well as doing this, and working over like that. Okay, so it's coming around okay. And let's hit up some of the trunks in here. I don't have too many trunks, like maybe one here. And then you can add in some of that lighter trunk up here too. Here's some the posts for the porch here. Here's the balcony. Stuff like that are kind of fun to illuminate. And here, I mean, it doesn't stand out a huge amount more, but a lot of this paper is a really light shade of gray, so adding a little bit of white onto it does bring out some highlights. Again, yeah, it's really subtle, but it does show up. So it just kind of makes the scene kind of shimmer a little bit more when you have this these little beads of lighting, in other words, white dots. We can illuminate some of these trees. Some of these trees, they stamped them over that kind of patterning in there, so they get a little bit dark in the open areas of the branches where they're supposed to be covered in snow, so you can go in there and scribble in a little bit of lightness on some of these branches. Like that. And then it makes your foreground branch stand out a little bit more by having a little bit of extra contrast and texture in them. That, so now you can see the difference between that one and this one. Kind of starts bringing it out a little bit more, and it looks a little bit more three-dimensional. And if you don't know where to put it, you're just looking for these white areas in here, or gray areas, light gray. And you're just kind of scribbling on some tone in them. If you haven't done that before, highlighted, it might feel kind of funny, and you might do one, and it looks, oh my god, that looks really strange. It's because you need to put it over, more objects in that area, and it'll look more natural, like natural lighting on there. Or maybe a consistent lighting, I should say. And let's hit, there's a large kind of open area on that tree. Let's go to the 3mm pen just to make it go a lot faster. All right, let's see here. Let me see if I can kind of I'm trying to de-emphasize some of the darker patterning right there, so I'm going over it with this pastel pencil. And let's do this too. Let's go in. I have a cotton ball with some white pigment ink here, and we'll soften up some of these areas in here and hopefully make it look like it's a little bit more kind of softer, with some softer lighting. You can de-emphasize some of these patterns up here too. Now, naturally, we don't want to get rid of the pattern. It was the whole idea of, using this paper is so that we can have some of those textures within the scene, where you can utilize it. But for the purpose of, scenic stamping, sometimes it can use a little bit of alteration, you know. I mean, these papers weren't meant to be, you know, this particular paper wasn't meant to be kind of looked at and whatever appreciated. It's meant to be, you know, eaten on and tossed out. So yeah, maybe not the most conducive for the application, but it can be used, you know, if used, you know, whatever, strategically, I guess. I'm just laying this down in some of those backgrounds. You can see I put some fog. See, I put it on one leg and not the other, so it looks like, I don't know, they're going into the light or something like that. You can put some on the side of the tree facing the light. And you can use this pretty liberally because the paper, you know, I didn't tone it in, so it's not super dark in here or anything like that, but you know, there's a little white in here, so you can use that white pigment ink quite a bit. All right, so there you have it right there. It's a pretty dimensional looking piece, I think. I think it looks pretty good. You can do a little shimmery light on the surface. You know, this is, like I said, this is like white against, I don't know, 2 or 3% gray, so it's not showing up that much. But little things like that can be kind of fun to add in there. That really stands out, but that's going to dry quite a bit and become a little bit less apparent. So you can add it in there and just allow it to dry. It'll kind of soak in a little bit. But anyways, fairly dimensional piece, I think, you know, when I look at it. And really easy to do because of the monochromatic nature of it. But all these little things like this, these little tiny, you know, well, it's not tiny, but these subtle kind of variations in here are fun to incorporate into a scene. Each one of them is a little bit different. You know, this is a, you know, roughly an 11 by 17 piece, so, you know, you get 4 of these out of there. But just kind of, you know, arrange your elements around certain areas. If, like I said again, if they have a lot of open area, you can do it this way, this way, this way, whatever you can do. You know, quarter-sized card or something like that, whatever you want to do. And of course, when you're done with it, I'd recommend mounting it. A big piece like this, I'm going to put some spray adhesive on it. You can see how thin the paper is. It's one of the thinnest papers I've ever stamped on before. But with that type of cool patterning in there, I foresee myself using it. I don't know about quite a bit, but I don't know. I think it's good enough to be getting the rotation and to utilize it at times for certain types of whatever scenic scenarios. So I think, and again, I was mentioning this on the live stream, I think putting a piece of that reflective silver around it, mounting it on there, I think it will be a really good combination for that type of tone that's in there. All right, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the card. Thanks as always for tuning into the Stampscapes channel.